Testing. How's the audio? How's the video? Live streaming begins at noon. It's 11:59. It's noontime. Time for another live streaming event by me, Rickmiracle. Dan, good sound video. Thank you. It's kind of weird. I guess you're watching, but the meter on the top of the live streaming YouTube screen says 0 people are watching. So I guess it doesn't count everybody. Well, I thought I would talk about something interesting today. 2 topics. Probably 1 topic if you put them together. But the Zionist state of Israel and its activities, along with propaganda and evidence of covert communist activities under the disguise of Social Democrats of America. So, as we all know, there's been some weird things going on with President Donald Trump in office. He does a lot of bizarre things. And I can only say, in my opinion, it's all part of his job to create animosity and hatred for the conservative Christian Republicans, etc. He's doing his job. Just like President Obama did his job, creating a lot of disgust among the Christian conservative Republicans because of the blatant progressive liberal attitudes. Even during his re-election speech inauguration, he said his 2 top priorities were gay marriage and gun control. So these are communist activities, to say the least. And of course, but the people tend to get lukewarm. It's been 16 years or whatever since 9/11, and so many people expecting the gloom and doom, and then 2008, and there was talk about it crashing in 2009 and 10 and 11 and 12 and 13 and 14 and 15 and 16 and 17, and now there's talk about it in 2018. So a lot of people are seeing a seemingly robust economy and are, I guess, mentally disarmed, thinking nothing's going to happen. But meanwhile, things are happening. The Syrians are still under attack, and a lot of rhetoric out there, hate talk about Iran, and so much more. Weapons are still being invented and built and tested. And in California, people have to sign special forms if they want to reject vaccinating their babies with 26 or 30 different vaccines. And some people are warning they're signing affidavits and can be accused of neglect. And then, of course, you have the dumping of chemicals in the sky continuing, and MUFON, UFO, and sightings and things like that. So there are things happening. The world is slowly moving in a direction. And the players behind the scenes, the puppet masters, are playing a pretty good chess game. And President Donald Trump is doing his job. Ticking off the Germans, ticking off the Britons, ticking off the Russians, ticking off the Chinese, pretty much across the board, ticking off the Democrats, the liberals, the progressives. And it's helping the leaders of those, i.e., communist movements, to mobilize and reel people in. So they have to turn up the volume, turn up the heat. Obama turned up the heat for the Republicans. Donald Trump is turning up the heat for the Democrats. You see how it's working? You got to mobilize people to keep this deception going, divide and conquer. So anyways, I saw this press release, again, just checking my email on Yahoo, and they have those press releases right at the top. I don't search for this stuff. I assume the stuff right at the top is what they want everybody to know. Dan says Canadians. All right. Democratic Socialists surging in the age of Trump. Zach Ringelstein, and I'm not trying to be a hater of any kind, but obviously he's Jewish. Ringelstein, Center, a Democratic candidate for the U.S. Senate in Maine. He's on the stairs of City Hall talking to passerbyers. The Democratic Socialist of America in Portland, Maine. On the ground of dozens of states, there is new evidence that democratic socialism is taking hold as a significant force in democratic politics. At right is Charles Tiedemann, field director of the Ringelstein campaign. So there's a picture here. Last Friday, Maine Democratic Zach Ringelstein wasn't ready to consider himself a formal member of the Democratic Socialist of America, i.e., communist. And you don't think so? You should read this article. Even if he appreciated the organization's values and endorsement in his bid to become a U.S. Senator. Well, that's nice. Wait till you hear what this guy thinks. 3 days later, he told the Associated Press that he was ready to become the only major party Senate candidate in the nation to be a dues-paying democratic socialist. Wow, didn't Hitler have a dues-paying national socialist? That's what Nazi means, national socialist. So they have dues-paying democratic socialists. That's nice. The swift evolution is latest evidence of a nationwide surge in the strength and popularity of an organization that, until recently, operated on the fringes of the liberal movement's farthest left flank. But as the Donald Trump's presidency stretches into the second year, democratic socialism has become a significant force in democratic politics. Its rise comes as Democrats debate whether moving too far left will turn off voters. I stand with the Democratic Socialists, and I have decided to become a dues-paying member, Ringelstein told the Associated Press. It's time to do what's right, even if it's not easy. So there was more here on the next page. I'm not reading it all. Defining modern-day democratic socialism, Medicaid for all, a $15 minimum wage, $15, free college tuition, and the abolition of the Federal Department of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, known as ICE. So he wants to abolish anything that would prohibit people from just walking across the borders into the United States. The DSA paid membership has hovered around 6,000 in recent years, said Ali Cohn, C-O-H-N. That name gives away that person, I think. A member of the group's national political team. Last week, the paid membership hit 45,000. There is little distinction made between the terms democratic socialism and socialism in the group's literature. They have a big tent philosophy. They reject an economic order based on private profit and share a vision of a humane social order based on the popular control of resources and production, economic planning, equitable distribution, feminism, racial equality, and non-oppressive relationships. Non-oppressive relationships. So anybody who would say anything negative, even about so-called Satanist, I suppose that would be a crime. You can't say nothing negative about anybody. Members during public meetings often refer to each other, here we go, as comrades, wearing clothing featuring socialist symbols like the rose. Socialist symbols like the rose, that would be Rosicrucian, a cult, and promote authors such as Karl Marx. So I guess I'm not going astray here by associating this group with the communist. And the communists are derivatives of the Bolshevik Jews who invaded Russia and proceeded to kill 25 million, admitted in an Israeli newspaper, to 100 million or more Christians and other good people when they invaded Russia, days almost after World War I, which is an interesting story there. The games that people play, the things that people don't know. But during World War I, for the prior 100 years or more, the Tsar, the leader of the Russians, and the political leaders in Russia were cracking down on certain things the Jews were doing in Russia. They had something called pogroms, not programs, pogroms, P-O. And basically it was legislation and police activity to restrict some of the things they were doing. Why would people do that? They must have been doing something to cause some kinds of problems, which in most cases governments would take action. And you can go on YouTube and watch videos about 90 or 100 different countries over 2,000 years that have either banned, exiled, policed, and even massacred Jews in their countries for some kind of certain behavior that irritated everybody, to the point of massacring them, exiling them from Britain, from Spain, from Italy, from Germany, from different places over 2,000 years. There's plenty of evidence of this. It's in the Encyclopedia Judaica. I've made videos on these topics, so nobody can really deny that. So anyways, when they were punished or treated what they would probably consider unfairly, practicing their Kabbalah and other activities, they were fleeing to Germany and found safe haven. That's the key. They found their Garden of Eden, their utopia. They were becoming wealthy. That's where the Rothschilds started their banking empire. So they were doing quite well in Germany, and Germany was prospering beyond belief. All was well. Except this prospering was irritating Britain, the kingdom where the sun never sets, the United Kingdom, Britain. So that's why you had World War I, because Germany was growing like a weed in economic and influence around the globe, instead of the previous Britain's control. And prior to that, of course, Rome was in control. So throughout history, there have been these empires. So anyways, during World War I, the influential Jews in Germany were trying to get the German leaders to assist them in convincing the Ottoman Empire in Turkey to allow them to establish a state in Palestine in the Middle East but the Germans didn't want to push too hard. So finally they got irritated, and Britain was losing the war, so they went over to Britain, and they had assisted in getting Woodrow Wilson elected president in the United States. And they promised Britain that they could get the United States on their side, because the United States was actually pro-German. And they could supply him with money, turn the tide, they could win the war, but they wanted them to influence the Ottoman Empire and help them acquire some land in Palestine to create the State of Israel. This is no small thing. So that's what happened, and Germany lost the war, and during the Versailles hearings, the trials, it came out, the Jews were saying, okay, we helped you win the war, Britain, now we want our land in Palestine, and the Germans became aware that they had been betrayed by the Jews that had found their utopia in Germany. A lot of people don't know that about World War I, and I'm sure a lot of people, like the people in these articles I'm reading right here, don't want you to know that either. All right, the common association with the Soviet Union, the first state to adopt a form of socialism, has made it difficult for sympathetic liberals to explain their connection. So a lot of people, when they think about Russia right now and Putin, are again joining one side of the fence or the other. One, people are saying, yeah, let's be pals with Russia, etc., etc. And the other ones are seething with vicious hate, saying no, and President Donald Trump is a traitor, a colluding. So they're doing a good job at dividing and conquering. I believe Russia, like most of the other countries in the world, is just another part of this chess game meant to sway people into a position where they let their guard down. So if they ever do actually launch World War III, it'll all have been planned. And if you do any research or homework or go watch my videos and get books or whatever, you will see that they were planning for World War I prior to it occurring. They were planning for World War II. They were beefing up the industrial munitions and weapons facilities before these wars started. The elites knew what they were doing. All right, and to finish this article, there's a lot more. You can go look it up. I don't like the term socialist because people do associate that with bad things in history. You think? He embraces policies like Medicaid for all and is openly critical of capitalism. So what did they do for 50, 60, 80 years after World War II? And they were running this program in the world called Aliyah. They were trying to get all the Jews to come home. And they were making deals with the leader of Iraq in the early 1900s and creating anti-Semitism and hate and all kinds of issues to get all the Jews from Argentina to Iraq, from the United States. This has been going on for 100 years. Just think of this as a plan. Just like if you were going to go out in your backyard and build a small building, you have to clear the ground, you got to go buy the lumber, pick up the nails, draw up some plans, start the bottom, put the sides up, put the roof up, put the inside, the windows, the doors, etc. You get the idea. You got to follow these steps. And this thing, to this globalism, these steps are being followed. There was another article, video I saw on YouTube, you know, when you go on your YouTube account, and I guess they follow what you're looking at, kinds of information, so they make recommendations. And so you get 8 or 10 different little boxes. We recommend this from Yahoo. And I saw this one title, and I said, well, I got to look at that. And it's the title of the video was Black Mobs Invading White Rural Communities During the SHTF Shit Hits the Fan. You can go look up this video. So you got this black guy speaking. I didn't find him to be horribly irrational. He made some sense. Let me say that coming out of the gate. But I did wonder when I was listening to his speech, I wondered what are the people commenting down below the video? So I thought I'd read a few of these and yet again prove a point that somebody's trying to stir the pot, instigate the hatred. And I must say this to anybody watching my video, and if you can even talk to other people, if you see people behaving in this way, are some people just stupid? Some of the things that these people say, it's easy to get ammunition to create hate because apparently there's a lot of stupid people out there. Either that or they're fabricating some of this stuff just to incite. Some people say my videos are insightful. And of course they had congressional hearings. I was watching Alex Jones' video, and the politicians are debating what to do about conspiracy theorists and their disruption of society and all that stuff. So eventually they have to do something they always do during a revolution. They have to do something called a purge. And that means all the undesirables, the enemy, for example, of communism, i.e. democratic socialism, i.e. progressive liberals, i.e. pansexual, transgender, rainbow coalition, i.e. also the destroyers and haters of Christianity and Jesus, communists. And communists were the Zionist Jewish people who invaded Russia, the Illuminati, mystery school religion people. Coincidentally, the people who had Jesus Christ crucified. This battle's been going on for a while. And it's not over. So what did the commenters say on this video, black mobs invading white rural communities during SHTF? Published April 15th, 2018. Should white rural communities worry about marauders invading their towns during the SHTF? The contingency plan 3 months ago, edited. So these different people made these comments. Take the white and black out of the equation. All people will be a dangerous threat if they have done nothing to prepare for a collapse. Both white and black will panic and be an extreme danger to your safety. So here you got the democratic socialism, Ringelstein party, Communist Party. They admit they follow Karl Marx, on the rise in the United States. And these are some things this black man made a video about. Kurt says, it's not a race thing, but a survive thing. Most rural folks that have gardens and have canned food and a full pantry, rural folks can survive, hunt, fish, and a lot of ammo. Markey says, worst case scenario was that a dystopian movie, The Road, extremely depressing and horrible. You remember Mad Max, the movie? Or even the movie Hunger Games and so many other movies. So I guess we can all kind of imagine the insanity. Paul says, yup, in a bad situation, things will get more insular. Traveling takes resources when the SHTF arises as likely to be available. Not to mention the extra level of risk it involves. So it's more a matter of how well you get along with your current neighbors. Martin says, I don't care what your color are. If you can be useful and trusted, I'll have your back as long as you have mine. Just interesting to see what people think. BC says, I live in a tiny little town, a very long walk from town of any size. Invading mobs would be dealt with quickly here, no matter what color of the skin. Forbid says, in a shit hits the fan scenario where every man for himself, Your best option is to be invisible. If no one knows that you have prepared, you can keep a low key. You will likely avoid those potential threats. I laugh at those stocking up with excessive guns and ammo. How many gunfights do you think you're going to survive? You have just announced you have supplies. Best way to survive a gunfight is not to get in that gunfight. The Impaler says, roving hordes of black people don't worry me. I live in a remote swamp area, and it's the gosh darn white trash, meth heads, and brain-damaged teenagers who are a problem. Lot of fat alligators back up in here. Chris says rural area will be safe, but black mobs will rip the city apart. Robert says during the shit hits the fan, everyone is suspect. Regardless of race, if we don't know each other, I'm on guard. Make friends during good times with like-minded people, regardless of race. Everyone pulling together is the trick to survive. John says, when and if the shit hits the fan, anyone, I don't know that comes my way, will be seen as a potential threat. If you look like a threat, you might want to stay clear. IPD says, I am fortunate because where I live, it's a rural area. My neighbors are black, white, and Hispanic. We know each other's first and last names, kids, relatives. We help each other. We have been through hurricanes and storms together, power outages and such. I think if we have an actual shit hits the fan situation, we are not going to worry about internal threats. We will be worried about external threats regardless of color. All right, Blue says, black communities got a history of rioting, looting, and arson. Violent creatures they are. See how some people think? Webmaster says, just survive for 30 days and the mobs will starve to death. If you can hunt and fish, you will survive, but keep your AR-15 handy. All right, Brandon, just a few more of these. You can go watch the video. But my point is, you just see how there's such a variety of thinking by people. Some people are rational. Some people are just say stupid things. I suspect they have stupid thoughts. They believe in the hate. I'm in South Carolina, and my neighbors are both white and black. We will be helping one another. It's people outside our neighborhood is what scares us. It's always the outsiders. A couple times I relocated where I lived, and it takes a while for people to warm up to you. Even in Cocoa Beach, where I lived right on the beach, you go down to the beach and you want to go surfing, and those people would treat you horribly bad until they got to know you. Always thought that was so strange. This unknowing thing causes people, even when I moved into a rural town in the mountains of North Carolina, not the city I live in now, those, I'll call them hillbillies, just so you understand the description of those people, but they were mistrusting everybody. It was even a little bit scary with some of those people. All right, Steve. To be honest, I never thought black mobs would be a problem. Everybody that's not ready will be a problem, and no one is ready. Separate yourself and be prepared to do whatever it takes. I don't think we have any idea how bad it can get. And I agree with that. I don't think people have any idea how bad it can get. For the most part, we are used to an easy and abundant life. Making a transition to chaos might be a lot more than people can handle. Robert says most people that I know in rural areas have at least 2 years worth of food at any given time. Not necessarily for shit hits the fan scenarios, but just because they have a tendency to be more self-sufficient. They can grow food, grow veggies, get water from the ground in a well, hunt for meat. You would be surprised how long a bag of raw beans will last someone who has a steady supply of water and the ability to hunt for meat. I have a huge problem where I live. An infestation of squirrels and rabbits. I thought to myself, well, if the shit hits the fan, I guess I'll be eating squirrels and rabbits. I had a deer in the backyard the other day eating the apples on the tree. Apparently we have bears, so I guess it does pay to live in a rural country kind of area. I have to learn how to be like Daniel Boone. Alright, it's 12:30 and I committed myself to talking about those two things for... you can go read all those comments, there's much more. But my point to those two articles... the one about the Social Democrats on the move. I think Donald Trump is playing his part to kind of motivate people to get more involved with the extreme left communist type groups. He's doing his part. And all these other things he's doing. And I think that a lot of people can be persuaded to think stupid things and take stupid answers, stupid positions and actions. I think it's discerning. We all need to be aware of this, and it requires a little bit of compassion and understanding with people to realize they are mentally brainwashed into certain kinds of thinking. And it takes a while, but the propaganda brought about by this push towards a global world order didn't start yesterday. Even in 1920s and 1930s, they had congressional hearings with the communists. They testified they were going to infiltrate everything. So people are generally short-term thinkers. They don't understand that this group of people trying to create a utopia for them and enslave the rest of us and do a huge depopulation event, that they have time on their side, that they see things in perspective of hundreds of years. FYI. So there was another article I saw. I was reviewing some of the links that I had saved in my favorites on my browser, Internet Explorer. And this document was right at the top. And it's called 911 Israel Did It. Wiki Spooks, 911 Israel Did It. Please go look this document up. And don't just believe what you read. Get a notebook, take some time, research what it says. But in the meantime, I'm going to spend the second half hour of my live streaming event today to just read some of this and have a conversation and throw in my 2 cents. When an event occurs that fundamentally changes the dynamics of global geopolitics, just like those 2 documents I just read, there is one question above all others whose answer will most assuredly point to its perpetrators. So who did 911? That question is si bono. Who benefits? If those so indicted are in addition found to have had both motive and means, then as they say in the U.S., it's pretty much a slam dunk. And so it is with the events of 911. Discounting the official narrative as the absurdity it so clearly is, there are just 2 organizations on the entire planet with the expertise, assets, access, and political protection necessary to have both executed 911 and effected its cover-up to date, i.e. the means. Both are intelligence agencies, the CIA and the Israeli Mossad, whose motives were arguably the most compelling. Those motives dovetail perfectly with the neocon PNAC agenda, where it explicitly stated a need for, and George Bush Jr. said this, I believe Reagan even mentioned a variation of this, a catastrophe and catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor in order to mobilize U.S. public opinion. You saw those two press releases I just read for you on the growth of democratic socialism, and this black gentleman writing about black mobs invading white rural communities, obviously also soliciting a lot of very ugly, nasty comments. Mobilize U.S. public opinion for already planned wars, the effects of which would be to destroy Israel's enemies. This article marshals evidence for the proposition that Israel did it. And the contents, acknowledgments, control, this is the contents. Control of the World Trade Center, 4 key Zionist network assets, WTC security in Zionist hands, World Trade Center security in Zionist hands, pre-knowledge of anthrax mailings, who killed John O'Neill, airport security in Israel hands, Israel citizens get tipped off. A lot of Jewish citizens were tipped off and didn't go into the buildings that day. That's pretty common knowledge. Anomalous trading at the securities markets. A lot of people are aware of that some people knew. My glasses look a little tilted. And made some stock market moves. Why weren't these things investigated? Other forewarnings. U.S. Army study on Mossad. Israel espionage around 9/11. After 9/11, more detentions of Israel. So apparently somebody made a phone call to the police saying there was a white van running around with explosives. They did find the van, and there were Israelis inside of it. They were taken to the police headquarters, and they were promptly released from my memory of research I've done. They went on TV in Israel bragging about their exploits. More detentions of Israelis after 9/11. 5 dancing Israelis. They were dancing on top of a New Jersey building, filming the event, having a celebration. One Israeli guy says to the police, "We are not your problem." So they were trying to say the Arabs are your problem. We're your friends. Truck bomb destined for George Washington Bridge. There was a mural on the van that tells the story. Israeli intelligence and P-Tech software systems, computer control backdoor. Precision guided plane. Rabbi Don Ziekheim and System Planning Corporation. These are just the contents, table of contents. The U.S. military knows Israel did it. Zionism and treason. And again, these people control America. They control the banking system. Prime Minister Sharon of Israel shouted that out during a heated discussion in the Israel government. Some of the members were saying, we can't keep doing this, taking the Palestinians' land and killing them. America will step in. Prime Minister Sharon shouted, don't worry about America. We control America, and the Americans know it. But I really don't think the American citizens at large know it. Investigation in Zionist hands. So if you go pay attention to this stuff or read this article, 31 pages here. All appointed chief judges were Zionist Jews. The commission Zionist controlled. These would be Jewish people that are pro-Zionism, which another word is globalism, or the Jewish Utopia, written by Professor Higger, a book discovered in a Texas library that was restricted on who could read it. You had to get special permission. Intelligence Officer Robert Williams. In my series 67 is a book, The Jewish Utopia, by Robert Williams, a retired intelligence officer, called The Ultimate World Order. I made 3 2-hour videos. You should see what that book says, The Jewish Utopia. So I'm armed with a lot of information, studying and reading since 2005, making videos, almost finishing 5 years, September, and 700 hours on YouTube, over 500 videos, encompassing 250 books and another 800 or 900 books in my office, books I've read, looked at, and I'm reading now. So it does seem that at some point in my conscious mind, I can see clearly what's going on, and there are these evil forces, and of course they've been around a long time, but they were able to get away with it. And I think at some point, they are preparing for the day when people wake up, and like all other life forms, they're not going to go away willingly. They're going to fight to survive. So things could get quite interesting. All right, crime scene evidently quickly removed. Crime scene evidence quickly removed and destroyed. Oh, I wondered, they were taking that steel out of there like they were in a race. Wouldn't let anybody take pictures or look at the steel. Apparently, it would have exposed all the explosives that were tied to all the columns in the buildings. Personalities, Zionist Jews, in all the right positions. Who was on board Flight 11? Bush speechwriters grossly inflate number of Israeli casualties. Who was Bush speechwriter? Remember, this is a table of contents, 31 pages here. If you really want to know all the inside scoop here, and again, I encourage people to not just believe it, to print out the document and go look up and research the evidence. I've made videos on this book, 911 Synthetic Terror, by Webster Griffin Tarpley, a well-known author. You can go watch him speak on videos on YouTube. See all my tabs here? Series 12. So back in 2013, I probably made that video, a couple hours. Series 12, I'm up to 208 right now. So, you read a book like this, and if you believe it, and you get all this evidence about these guys, Rumsfeld and Dick Cheney, and just so much in this book. You know that Israel did it, along with the other people of the mystery religion, the satanic cults, Illuminati, high-level Freemasons. Another book, Where Did the Towers Go? Evidence of Directed Free Energy Technology on 911. There's a picture of the street plan of all the destruction. Look how far Building 7 was from World Tower 1 and 2. And it free fell also, clear evidence of demolition. So I've certainly done a lot of homework over the years, so it seems that this information in this document is fairly accurate. Mohammed Atta leads us directly to Jewish crime network doorstep. Al-Qaeda was Mossad playing dress-up. Netanyahu openly gleeful of 911 terror attacks. And you really want to get irritated? Go look and see what Benjamin Netanyahu said in Fink's bar. You won't like it. They're going to make the United States a third world country and make us regret not wanting to be their slaves. That's what he says. He's the Prime Minister of Israel today. Likely architect of 911, connected events lead to Israel. Zionist would-be terrorist incident at the Mexican Congress building. Quotes from prominent people. Former Italian president agrees. The former Italian president says Mossad Israel's intelligence agency, did 911. That guy ought to know. He's the president of Italy. Former Pakistani ISI director says it was Mossad. So I got about 15 minutes here to go. I'm going to continue to read this and talk about it. The University of Alaska has a peer-reviewed study on Building 7, says Den, that contradicts the NIST report. We know, they know the truth, but they don't want us to know the truth. All right, control of World Trade Center complex. One of the first operational steps in preparation for the 9/11 attacks would have been to secure control of the World Trade Center complex itself. This is crucial because without complete control, the setting of explosives to bring down the towers would be next to impossible without serious risk to discovery. The 4 key Zionist network assets. Larry Silverstein is a Jewish-American businessman from New York. Silverstein obtained a 99-year lease on the entire World Trade Center complex on 24 July 2001. So obviously September 1. So July, August, September. 35 days before 9/11. Silverstein obtained a 99-year lease on the entire World Trade Center complex. 35 days. The towers were, in fact, close to worthless, being filled with asbestos. I didn't know that. The story I'm aware of is during the 1986 bombing in the lobby of one of the buildings, supposedly done by terrorists, many years earlier than 2001, of course. But whenever you have a bombing, the insurance company, just like if you have a fire at your house, after the firemen put it out and you call a contractor and you get the place repaired, the insurance company requires an inspection to issue an insurance policy. Of course. So when they did inspect the buildings after that 1986 bombing, they discovered that the construction of the buildings was faulty, and eventually the buildings were going to collapse on their own. I had documentation about this collected early in my research. And I remember a popular science magazine, I wish I could find a copy, that showed some of the new technologies involved in the construction of the Twin Towers. It was like instead of steel beams in a lot of places, they were using tubular connected steel. So anyways, during the inspection, they looked inside the columns in the buildings, and apparently they were defective, and it was predicted they would eventually fall down, start falling apart. Insurance doesn't pay for faulty construction. So they had a problem. And I suppose this was a convenient way to resolve that problem, to use them as another Pearl Harbor, to bring about the activities in the world that we've all witnessed and accepted their story when it's pretty far from the truth what they told people. There's too much evidence. There's thousands, I don't know how many videos on YouTube with people reporting the evidence. Even the Architects of America Association have all signed off on the fact that it was demolition. It wasn't a plane hitting a building and naturally making them all free fall, including Building 7, which was never hit by a plane. And that poor demolition expert in Norway, I don't recall his name, He went live on talk shows and videos that, as a demolition expert, of course it was demolition. And he mysteriously died, like almost something had controlled his car right into a gigantic tree. It was a horrific crash. All right. So the towers in this article say they were worthless because they were filled with asbestos. Yet Silverstein felt a compelling urge to own them. Silverstein had breakfast in the Windows on the World restaurant, located in the North Tower, 107th floor, every morning. Every morning he had breakfast on the 107th floor, but broke this routine on the morning of 11 September 2001, 9/11. Silverstein's two children, who also worked at the WTC, World Trade Center, were also absent from work that day. Larry Silverstein was paid a little over $4.5 billion in insurance money as the result of the destruction of the World Trade Center complex. Silverstein was on a personal friendship terms with Zionist media magnate Rupert Murdoch, former Israeli President Ariel Sharon, the one who says, "Don't worry about America, we control America, and the Americans know it." So he was a personal friend of former Israeli President Ariel Sharon, as well as Israeli Prime Minister current Benjamin Netanyahu. Silverstein was such good friends with Netanyahu that, according to the Israeli newspaper Haaretz, he would speak with him on the phone every Sunday. So Mr. Silverstein was definitely connected. And President Donald Trump recognizes, or says the United States recognizes, Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. It's all tied to this. George Bush Jr. was on duty as president during 9/11. Was also involved, according to this book. All these people were involved in hushing it up and getting the metal out of there. And Dick Cheney was in the, you see his picture there on the USA? He's quoted as saying in this book and many other places that to have all the jets that were supposed to be scrambled for these planes, he demanded that they all stand down. Even his younger officers were going, "Are you sure that's what we should do?" And Dick Cheney screams out, "You heard my orders, stand down." I'm paraphrasing, of course. So you got Frank Lowry, a Czechoslovakian-born Jew, was the owner of Westfield America, one of the biggest shopping mall conglomerates in the world. Lowry leased the shopping concourse area called the Mall at the World Trade Center, made up of approximately 427,000 square feet of retail space. Frank Lowry has an interesting history. He was a member of the Golani Brigade and fought in the Israeli War of Independence. Before this, he was a member of the Haganah, a Jewish terrorist organization. Wow, the players that are involved. He spends 3 months a year at his home in Israel and has been described by the Sydney Morning Herald as a self-made man with a strong interest in the Holocaust and Israeli policies. He funded and launched the Israeli Institute for National Strategy and Policy, which will operate within the framework of the Tel Aviv University in Israel. He is also a close friend with many top Israeli officials, Ehud Olmert, Ariel Sharon, Benjamin Netanyahu, Ehud Barak. He was implicated in an Israeli bank scandal with Olmert. Frank Lowery was not at the World Trade Center on 9/11 either. Louis Eisenberg. Eisenberg was the head of the Port Authority of New York and authorized the lease transfer to Silverstein and Lowery. Eisenberg was a large contributor to the Bush-Cheney presidential campaign, as well as a partner in the Jewish bank Goldman Sachs. Eisenberg had been both a member of the planning board of the United Jewish Appeal, United Jewish Federation, pro-Israeli government pressure group in the U.S. 31 pages here. I'm only going to be reading 5 more minutes. If you think this is interesting and you'd like to have the whole scoop, detail by detail, of this particular Israel Did It Wiki Spooks website, here's the title. Print it out, and if you don't, just imagine you're in a jury during a trial for somebody for murder, which 9/11 was murder. I just wonder, after reading these 31 pages, would you say to Israel, guilty or innocent? It says in this article, on the first page, the evidence is a slam dunk for Israel Did It, guilty. And if you've been watching my videos, there's so much more evidence that these Zionist Jewish folks, Illuminati, mystery school religion people, apparently Luciferianism or Satanism, they've been at these ugly things for a long time. Brought us World War I, World War II. Instigated, initiated the war between the North and the South in the United States. Went Nesta Webster in my videos I made on her books. They were the instigators, initiators of the French Revolution, which was horrific. And so much more. The Russian invasion after World War I. All espionage, by the way. A lot of powerful people in powerful places. The Russian leader, the Tsar, and his family never saw it coming. They were off guard. World War I had just ended. They were sitting ducks. 100 million Russian Christians and other good people slaughtered. They don't call that a Holocaust. Why? 6 million, they say, in Germany? They call that a Holocaust. But not the 100 million or 25 million admitted in an Israeli newspaper during the invasion into Russia by the Bolshevik Jewish people who brought us the creation of communism. We just read about that the democratic socialism is surging right now, and President Donald Trump is doing his job. He's rallying the troops in a interesting way by making them mad at his actions. So it's all intentional, in my opinion. Ronald Lauder, billionaire Estee Lauder cosmetic magnate. He was the chairman of New York Governor George Pataki's Commission on Privatization. He is the key individual who lobbied for the privatization of the World Trade Center. So they wanted to privatize this World Trade Center. But he was also instrumental in the successful privatization of the former Stewart Air Force Base. Oddly, the flight paths of Flight 175 and Flight 11 converged directly over this airport. A lot of coincidences here. Coincidences, you really think? Go get this book. Watch my video, Series 12, Freemasonry and Satanism, book review. Go get Judy Wood's book. Big, thick book. Evidence of directed free energy technology. I need to make a book review on that book. All right. Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations. Lauder is active in the following organizations. And he wasn't in the building where he had that huge mall. But he was a Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations, the Jewish National Fund, the World Jewish Congress. Get it? It says it right here. World Jewish Congress. So why do they have a World Jewish Congress? Is that telling us something? The American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee, the Anti-Defamation League. They don't want people talking about the truth. The Jewish Theological Seminary. So is Judaism a religion or not? Or is it a race? In many cases throughout history, the Jews have denied that they're a race. And in many cases, the Jews have denied their religion. What is it to be Jewish then? Then, of course, you got the Khazars, which is near Russia, between Poland and Germany, up northern area, 1,000 years ago, from the country of Khazaria, the Khazars, and the whole country converted to Judaism. Why? Because they heard they were God's chosen people. And the Khazarians were ruthless barbarians, next-door neighbors to the Mongolians, who brought us Genghis Khan, who invaded all over Europe and Asia and slaughtered people relentlessly. Why? He said God told him he had to punish people. Some voice in his head, some demon. Anyways, the ruthless Khazarians would rent out armies to neighboring countries to fight their wars. They were naturally barbaric, and these people all converted to Judaism, and they're the prominent people in Israel today who call themselves Druze, but they don't have a drop of Hebrew blood in them. But they follow this Kabbalah cult, which is the occult, which I call witchcraft, sorcery, just so you can understand. And I'm not necessarily opposed to supernatural psychic powers and such like that. But when they're used against the rest of us, well, I call it witchcraft. All right, Lauder founded a school for Mossad, the intelligence agency, in Herzliya, Israel, called the Lauder School of Government Diplomacy and Strategy. He is arguably the key scion in the preparation of 9/11. So this guy who rented 427,000 square feet merchandise space opened up a spy school for Israeli intelligence officers. And this article says he is arguably the key player, the architect in the preparation of 9/11. It's got page after page after page here of everybody who was anybody in charge of governments and security was in the hands of Zionists. Who killed this guy? An investigator? Airport security, Israel hands? Prior knowledge? Israeli citizens get tipped off? Anomalous trading in the securities markets? 31 pages. Mossad connections, Israeli espionage on 9/11. All right, so that's my live streaming event for today on this Saturday. I just thought it was a necessary conversation because when I also went on Yahoo just to check my emails, wasn't looking for this stuff. And YouTube had this black mobs invading white rural communities was a recommended video for me to watch. So somebody's obviously getting people to get rattled in the head And then the Democratic Socialism was a press release when I was checking my email. Surging in the age of Trump. And I like to be a discerning type of guy when I see these press release titles. And I kind of back up and I say, why would they create a video like that saying the black mobs are going to be invading our rural neighborhoods if we have a national collapse or catastrophe? And why would they have a press release that's saying the National Socialist Democrats are on the increase in response to this weird stuff that President Donald Trump continues to do, like recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel? And of course, we all know about all the destruction since 9/11, which was another Pearl Harbor, which they were asking for. So it just seems to me it doesn't take a genius or rocket scientist or Sherlock Holmes to put 2 and 2 together. What do you think? Leave a comment below. So thanks for watching today. Rick Miracle reporting.